got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron, and the game just finally wrapped up. It's hard to stay up that late, especially for a preseason game, but we are live recording immediate reactions after the Bears just beat the Seattle Seahawks 27-11. So welcome back, everybody. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube, but also for everybody that is listening, make sure to rate 5 stars. We continue to donate money out to the Thorn organization that helps fight human trafficking. So every 5-star rating we get out on Spotify, I will donate $1 extra over to the organization. So thank you all so much, but let's get this started. First off, I am so surprised that the Seahawks fans stayed that late for this game. Like, they're still cheering and they were down by like 20 points and they're still there. So kudos to the Seahawks fans. I know that they're crazy, but geez, staying this late when the scrubs are in, kudos. And kudos to you too that are watching out here, because it's fairly late out here. But let's get into this. And honestly, I'm feeling really good after this game. After the first game, I felt mainly good about the backups. But really, to me, this felt good. The offense looked good. I was critical of the offense last episode, but this, I really liked it. It was a dub for our Bears, and really, like, to me, I liked what I saw out of Justin Fields. I liked what I saw out of Luke Getsy. It's not the full offense, but seemed like he started to show what this offense is capable of. More rollouts. We saw 3 people on this rollout like that Justin Fields was running. It was great. It was awesome to see. I felt good about the offense. The defense didn't let up a lot of points. We shut them out at half when they had their first strings and backups in. So it wasn't like a lot of flashy plays out of the defense. It was just a good team. The announcer said it. It seemed like we played like a team. So it was great. It was awesome to see for a preseason game. It was awesome to see with this team overall. But let's go through some of the stats. So overall, we threw for 160 passing yards. They threw for 228. So a lot more yards, but still, they got a lot of that towards the end of the game. And then from a rushing stats perspective, we ran the ball 33 times and got 117 yards off of that, which is only a measly 3.5 yards a carry. So not great. But on the flip side, Seattle, 19 carries, 96 yards, 51 yards a carry. Not great, but at the same time, too, we let up a 33-yarder from Travis Homer and a 16-yarder from Darwin Thompson. But really, overall, when you look at the receiving, our leading receiver was Simba Webster with 4 receptions for 25 yards, and Isaiah Coulter with 3 catches for 39 yards overall. But really, just a great fought game. I'm feeling good. But let's go through just some of the main highlights. So let's start with who wasn't there. Well, we have to address that. So the people that we did not see out there playing: Riley Reif, David Montgomery, Byron Pringle, Jaquan Brisker, Kindle Vildor, Thomas Graham Jr. But then there's probably some other ones kind of sprinkled out throughout those, but those were kind of the main ones that I wanted to call out. But some other ones too. We saw that Matt Adams went down after his first tackle, just something for us to monitor. Dieter Iselin, the backup center, after Doug Kramer was placed on IR, actually went down, but then came back in and played, honestly, surprisingly decent. But then also Caleb Johnson, we also saw went down. So we're just going to have to monitor that injury to see, is he going to be okay? There was a lot of people flagging someone over, but it seemed like it was more for the Seahawks rather than Caleb Johnson. And then last, we saw Tristan Ebner go down as well. Another injury just to be on the lookout for, because he was kind of hobbling, but we don't know too much. We just need to keep our eyes peeled. But let's go through just this overall game. Like I was saying, this offense looked better. We saw more rollouts. But here's the thing that really impressed me. I've been critical of Justin Fields with taking too much time in the pocket, just taking his sweet time. What we saw today, and I love this, somebody was barreling down at him. And what did he do? He threw the ball, not like okay, I'm just going to lob it up, like kind of what Trevor Simeon did. He threw it to his receiver, but in a normal spot, last year, Justin Fields would take a sack. This year's Justin Fields threw that ball away. That is incredible to see. Just a small little piece that's awesome to see. Progression out of your starting quarterback. I feel good. I feel good with what we saw. He was what, 5 for 7? Just a good outing with Justin Fields and this offense. We also saw that we went for it on 4th down. And what I also like to see too, on that 4th down play that we ran a little Packers pick play. We've been seeing those a little bit more, and it was nice to see when the Packers kind of run those pick plays or those rub routes, as they call them. We ran a couple of those, and it was nice to see that we just started doing more of that. But let's actually get into, I've just kind of decided to group up a couple of these just so that we have who impressed and who didn't. So thought it would be a little bit easier. Highlights and lowlights. So let's start off with this offense. So I was already talking about Justin Fields. Overall, Justin Fields looked good, better than he has before. Love to see it. But then next, the big person, the big man at the right guard spot. We said this right guard spot was something to watch out for. We saw Tevin Jenkins as the starter and Michael Schofield as the backup. This shows to me that this is a legit competition. They were not happy with the way that Michael Schofield played because here's this guy that they expected to be the starter, and now Tevin Jenkins comes out of nowhere, and now he's starting. You're seeing the reps, and I loved what I saw out of Tevin Jenkins. I still think that he's still young. He still has some of those little hiccups in his game, but there was in the run game. Love seeing what Tevin Jenkins is able to do in the run game. There was one that just blew me away. And when I saw it, there's two guys kind of coming, and he pushes one off over to the center and then takes on his guy. And it was just a play that I haven't seen many guards do. And just the way that he executed it was phenomenal. And because of that, a big hole opened up. And it was great. So Tevin Jenkins, do I think that he's going to be the starting guard? Not going to crown him quite yet because another highlight was Michael Schofield. When I was watching number 64 out there, he was impressing me. Not as much as Tevin Jenkins, but Schofield was holding his own. He was blocking the guys that he needed to block. And overall, that's all you really need to ask for. He was showing like, listen, I'm not a backup. I don't need to be out here with these guys. Give me my spot back. And what I like now is we have a legit competition at this right guard spot between Tevin Jenkins and Michael Schofield. And I feel too, if both of them are on the roster, more than happy with that. Schofield played well, Jenkins played well, and I really like this. I love that they moved Jenkins in, and I felt like we saw the dividends already paying out right now. But let's keep on moving down. So with the backups, because we didn't see the starters too much. We only saw like the one drive really for these starters, but we saw the backups come in. And I want to just give Trevor Simeon a little bit of credit because yeah, he was 8 for 15, so about 50%, but just felt like the offense was running well with him at quarterback. So I just want to give Trevor Simeon a shout out. I did like the throw that he threw over to Isaiah Coulter that I thought was a catch, but it just seems like when Trevor Simeon's out there, it's good. And for a backup quarterback, I just want to give him a little bit of a shout out. He's not the sexiest of names out there, but just want to give Trevor his due. Good job, Simeon. Just a good play overall. And also for those watching live, if there's anyone that really stuck out to you on the offense or defense, let me know down in the chat. But then also, I got to give love to the fullback. Jake Tongas, he was someone that we had on the watch list. I didn't see Blasingame out there at all, but Jake Tongas to me, you saw him catch the touchdown, but there was also a couple other plays that I saw some key blocks. He was a lead blocker for Treston Ebner on one of these runs, and what he did was there was a linebacker coming behind, and he just takes out the linebacker's legs, and now Ebner doesn't even have to worry about it. Really liked what we saw out of him. Most likely just going to be a practice squad player, just as your backup fullback. But you know what? Backup fullback's got to get some love too. I really like the play out of the rookie, Jake Tongas. And then next, it wasn't necessarily his stats that jumped out at me. 9 carries, 29 yards. Treston Ebner, running back, rookie running back that we know and love out of Baylor. I really liked what I saw because he just kind of proved that he's more of that change of pace type of running back, where he's something that we don't have with the Khalil Herbert. He's something that we don't have with David Montgomery. The way that he breaks tackles is different than the other people that we have out there. He just seems more bursty. Like I was going to say shifty, but David Montgomery's ridiculously shifty. I like the change of pace, but I don't, he's not like the super high highlight. He just stuck out to me in that regard. But he still needs to get his pass blocking down. There was a play where he did kind of give up a pressure. You can't be fully yelling at him for it, but you just want to see somebody. I don't think that he's going to be a third down back for this team, which seems to be where he would actually be kind of get his specialty. But then also, we're now down to towards the bottom end of the roster, guys. Simba Webster had a great game. Like I said, he had the most receptions. He had 7 targets. He seemed to be a guy that people were going to. We saw this in training camp that people liked throwing it to Simba Webster, and we saw that translate on the field. And is he going to make the active roster? Most likely not. But he might make this practice squad, especially when you're seeing not a lot of other people were getting targets. And Isaiah Coulter did get 6 targets, but still, it just seemed like Simba Webster was more integrated in here and made a couple good catches. And my last big highlight, Lachavious Pig Simmons impressed me again at that left guard spot. Yes, going against third teamers, but we've seen him get cooked. We've seen him get beat at the right tackle spot. Move him over to the opposite end at left guard. Guy's showing out. He's playing well. He wants to be on this team. He wants to be on this practice squad. Bravo, Lachavious Simmons. He's looking good week in and week out. We got Mike in the comments too when I was asking about just who's doing well. Gill, yes, Trenton Gill. He's looking great. The punter, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that he's the real deal at this punting position as a whole. And yeah, just the overall special teams is just impressive. We're seeing, like they were announcing it. They're like, yeah, Cairo Santos, who's pretty much money. It's like, yeah, he is. I kind of like took a moment to be like, let's just appreciate Cairo Santos for a little bit because it's nice to have a kicker that you can at least trust, or knock on wood that we can trust, because we know how sour things can go. But really also, let's talk about special teams a little bit too. We might have a little bit of a competition, but I think Bayless Jones Jr. showed that, hey, I can do something big. Joe Thomas was totally in his way and kind of didn't allow him to score the touchdown because he didn't know where Bayless Jones Jr. was going to be. But Bayless Jones looked good returning kicks. I think the first one wasn't great, or I'm trying to remember what I had down in my notes. The first play, I'm recording this literally right after the game, but I'm pretty sure that his first one wasn't great, but it just seemed like after he got used to like, hey, I'm in the NFL, this is my first game, you kind of saw some of those big plays kind of pop out and kind of see where he can kind of fit into this offense. Because we didn't see him a lot, but you saw you give him a couple screens, you try and put him out in open space, and he can make some people pay. But a good return. And overall, yes, bravo. Special teams is looking good. And this is just where you looked at this team, and it's preseason, yes, but the team the team aspect seems to be there. And if you're a good team, you win football games. And that's the biggest thing. And it looks like we have a good team on our hands. But let's flip over to this defensive side of the ball. Who impressed you? Because to me, first person out there, not necessarily with his play in particular, but Kyler Gordon is fast. He is quick. He is bursty. It was nuts to see him out there. Like, we've already seen NFL corners, NFL slots. Now we get to see why people say that he's a freak. That he's a freak out there from an athlete perspective. Kyler Gordon just bursting through the lines. You're like, damn. Like, my God, he's got some wheels to him. Like I said, there was some plays that weren't the best. There was a big run by Travis Homer, and really that should have been his tackle to make. There was, I believe that it was also Joe Thomas that should have made the tackle as well. It was kind of him, but really Kyler Gordon should have been making that tackle and missed it. So, rookie, welcome to the NFL. There's a couple other plays too that, when I saw it wasn't great, but there was some plays where I remember he was playing a little bit of press coverage, and it was when the ball got swatted down. He was all over his guy, just a blanket, completely on him. But still, Kyler Gordon, first game, you see why the Bears liked him. You see that athleticism that kind of brings him to that first round conversation, like a lot of people had him in. But as we continue to go through, speaking of burst, Robert Quinn, this is the first time that we saw him all season so far, all preseason. And yeah, you see the burst, you see the explosiveness that he contains. Now, yet again, this wasn't necessarily a play thing that why he's on my highlights, just more so like the dude has the burst. He still has that burst. He still has that fire. And that's how we got 18 and a half sacks last season. So overall was just impressed seeing the speed and the burst of a Kyler Gordon, a Robert Quinn. But then next, I am notorious for not liking Angelo Blackson. Angelo Blackson played well. I thought that he played well. He went through the line a couple times, and he showed why he's on this team. Because when we saw Kyrus Tonga out there, Tonga was solid. He had his highlights and he had some of his lowlights. But I think Angelo Blackson showed why a lot of people are saying he's going to be the starter next to Justin Jones. Just an overall solid performance by Angelo Blackson. But now we get into the sweet spot. Now we get into the fun part. Jack Sanborn and DeMarquise Gates continue to ball out. Yeah, we don't have an interception. Yeah, it isn't as welcome to the NFL Jack Sanborn as last time. But Jack Sanborn still had 7 tackles. He had 7, I believe he had 7 tackles last time as well, 5 solo. But the guy just looks good. You see him, he's a smart player. There's a handful of plays, traffic. He knows where to be in the running plays. And even, I'm not watching the all 22 right now. I will eventually in the week. But it just seems like whenever you can get a glimpse of him, he's in the right spot in coverage as well. So Jack Sanborn, DeMarquise Gates, big fans of what they're able to put out there. DeMarquise Gates always seemed to be around the ball. They only charted him with 5 tackles, but 2 tackle for losses. It just seems like he knows where to be. And I like this backup group for linebackers. I know going into the season, we're like, all right, we have Joe Thomas, we have Matt Adams, whoever that is. But now seeing these guys out there, Matt Adams was banged up, but Joe Thomas, DeMarquise Gates, Jack Sanborn, I feel good about this depth. I wish we could have seen Caleb Johnson more. He got banged up, but I wish we could have seen him just so we could see how does he compare to these other guys that are showing that they're good, that they should be on this roster and they should make a spot. So I really like what we have cooking. And I think that Jack Sanborn and DeMarquise Gates just continue to impress overall. But then my last 2 people that impressed me, Trayvon Coley, again, kind of like the first play, I believe, that he was out there, comes up with a big sack, continues to impress at the defensive tackle spot. And what does that mean? I mean that it looks like he's just going to be trying to fight for a roster spot. He's more of a vet, not like a 30-year-old, but I think he might be 28. He's fighting for a roster spot. He's fighting to be out there, and I think he could make this roster. If you'll see that another person on the lowlights, but I think he could potentially fight for one of those roster spots. And the last guy, I've been critical of him because I didn't like what I saw in training camp. I didn't like what I saw last preseason game. Sam Kamara, have a day. Sam Kamara was always in the backfield. No matter who was out there, Sam Kamara was always out there. I would always kind of like rewind and like rewatch a play, and then fast forward. And there was a time that I thought that I just kind of replayed the same play because Sam Kamara was in the backfield pressuring the quarterback 2 times in a row. Sam Kamara had an incredible day. Now, Charles Snowden had a solid day as well, but really, Sam Kamara had a very impressive for the small stature that he was. He was just knifing in and blowing up gaps. Sam Kamara had a very good day today. But that about wraps up some of these highlights. I will go through more of my notes towards the end just to make sure that I captured everything. But these were my highlights. And now we got to go to the lowlights. So this is going to be the pessimistic spot of it. But yet again, these are just lowlights, not saying that they're terrible or bad. But just to start things off, I I did not like what I saw out of Braxton Jones. It was one drive, absolutely just one drive. But Braxton Jones, though, I just saw that he was kind of getting beat with some speed. Just didn't look great all the different times that I saw him. The only times that he looked really good was on some of the running plays and when they were moving the pocket. That's why they liked him. But overall, though, Braxton Jones, not a great game. He had his worst practice and his worst preseason game out of two. So Braxton Jones hopefully will then put it on tape, see what it looks like, and then rebound right after that. So not alarmed, not a cause for concern at all, but just not a great game. But some cause for concern, Zachary Thomas again. I just really don't like what I see out of him at left guard. He's the rookie out of San Diego State. Just really not liking what he's putting on tape. Just not really impressive. Yeah, you don't hit on all your draft picks, but just the more that I watch, the more it's like, yep, that's a practice squad player right there. And especially when you have Lachavius Pig Simmons doing well and doing good things at that left guard spot. But my next low light, Daz Newsome. The guy cannot catch a break. First pass goes his way, drops it. An easy pass, drops it. But then first offensive play maybe of the third quarter, makes a good catch in traffic. Very good play. And then gets bumped by Tuggle and fumbles a punt return. Not his fault, but it just looks bad. It just looks bad on Daz. And I want to see him do well. I want to see him play well. It just wasn't another good game for Daz Newsome. So Daz, I hope the third and final one is good because it sounds like he's doing well in training camp, but when it's coming down to the games, he's looking like a practice squad guy, and I want to see him on this team. I like Daz, but the hands have been the question ever since coming out, and it still continues to be a question for him. And the last low light, it's not actually a player, but that delay of game. Did that rub anybody else the wrong way? When it was the throw that Trevor Siemian had that went out to Coulter, which looks like a catch. And the Bears just let the clock run down and we get a delay of game. And then after we get the delay of game, we don't throw the challenge flag. We just go. We don't throw the challenge flag. We just run the punt. So what the heck was going on? So it is preseason, so they're probably getting used to it. And they are all pretty much new coaches in their field. So it just wasn't a good, yet again, a low light of the game overall. Like you can easily avoid that. You could have easily thrown the challenge flag, but we did neither. We just got penalized for it. So just a low light. But overall, though, not a lot of low lights for this team as a whole. I guess you could say I would like to see Velus Jones more as a receiver, but I'm not going to ding him on any of that at all if I'm being nitpicky. There was some miscues with Dieter Iselin at center. But honestly, I was actually gonna put Dieter Iserland as a highlight just because there's a lot of questions at this center position with Doug Kramer being out. Because, all right, we've seen Dieter and he's not that great at center, but he comes in and played solid. Just a couple snapping mishaps, which probably happens when you are the backup center. And it seems like they were playing him more at guard. So overall, though, it was solid. Let's continue on some of the lowlights yet again. It's not saying that they're bad or anything like that. It's just, I wanted a little bit more out of them and just didn't see it. They didn't meet my expectations. Travis Gibson, I thought had a very good game, first game, but this game just didn't look as great. Uh, yet again, not bad, but just didn't pop the way that I expected him to. Kairos Tonga as well. Kairos Tonga, I liked his from a pass rushing perspective, not a low light. I thought that he was pretty good, created some pressure, but there was a couple times that I saw yet again without reviewing the all 22. There's just a couple times that it seemed like they were moving him around a little bit too much. And as the big guy, the big nose tackle, didn't love that. And also Demarcus Robinson, yet again, maybe I'm just a harsh grader, or if I like a player, I just expect a little bit more. Dominique Robinson, I just felt, yet again, not like he's bad, but you can kind of see that it's just kind of showing that rawness to him. He's a great athlete. He's got great burst. He's got great speed, but just needs to build up his arsenal and just kind of wiggle free a little bit more. You saw when he came into the third team, he looked a lot better, but with the second team, didn't really turn a lot of heads. Also, another one, Laquale London, didn't do a lot with the second team, especially since if you want this guy to be a second team D tackle, you expect him to play a little bit better. Against the third team, like the backups, I thought that Laquale London played a little bit better at that defensive tackle, but still just didn't really impress me all that much. And my last two, AJ Thomas, the safety number 21, thought he played very well against the Chiefs, but today missed some tackles, seemed to be in some bad coverage spots. Just overall wasn't impressed with what we saw out of AJ Thomas. And then last, Jalen Jones, the cornerback. When you're frequently being targeted like Jalen Jones was, it's probably not a good thing. He let up a couple catches. Yet again, need to review the tape to see, was it actually his fault or was it someone else? But overall, just not a great, not a great showing for a couple of these defensive backs that had good games last time. So overall, though, it was a good game. I really enjoyed what the Bears showed out there. And yeah, I don't know why I'm ending it on the lowlights. I should have ended it on the highlights so that we feel good about this game because we're 2-0. Yeah, it's preseason. But guys, we're 2-0 so far, and the team is looking good. But I'm just going to go through some of my notes just to see if there was anything else that I might have missed. One just right off the bat, Cole Kmet, I enjoyed. You saw what he can look like inside of this offense because we haven't seen any tight ends. Bryson John was our starting tight end last game, and we at least had O'Shaughnessy and Coulter back, so it was nice. And Kmet back, so it was nice to see Cole Kmet get a couple catches, break a tackle. It was just nice to see this offense semi fully healthy, but it'll be nice to at least have that. But it was not also, I like that we went to the fourth down, and key thing, it was fourth down and we got somebody offsides. Who does that remind you of? The Green Bay Packers, right? We are running rub routes where we're setting picks or legal screens, and we're also trying to get people to jump offside. So really, really like that. We also saw an RPO to Mooney on that little screen. You kind of saw that he had the option to kind of hand it off, but chose to go over to Mooney instead. So more RPOs, the better. Even though that Matt Nagy always preached RPOs, I think that he was like third least amount of RPOs called last season. So didn't actually do what he was saying he was going to be doing. But looking some other stuff. So yes, Tevin Jenkins impressed for me. Really pushed the pile. Really liked that. Um, But then just some other little pieces. Al-Qadim Muhammad, you can see kind of why he always is kind of running after people, always high motor. But yeah, just overall, I think that about does it. Just good play. Good play. Excited for next season. Excited for this season to start up because this made me feel optimistic. This last game made me feel like maybe we're going to be picking in the top 5, top 10. This made me feel like we're going to be competitive. We should be able to play well. I'm excited about this season if you can't tell. But guys, thank you all so much again for staying up. It's 11 o'clock where I live. Thank you guys so much. And make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to find us everywhere that you get your podcasts. Just search for Unbearable Sports. And Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.
Thank you for listening to this Belly Up Sports Podcast Network product. Some said we go belly up, so we made it our name, and we're still here.